Now to begin our notes. So as mentioned, we learned about the vertex and how to find the vertex. That was from standard form. What we're going to be doing today is learning the equation for vertex form. So the equation for vertex form starts with f of x equals a parentheses x minus h squared plus k. So this is the new formula called vertex form. This is actually way easier than the lesson before because if it's in vertex form, you just have to pull out the h and the k. Now, the h is going to be the opposite of what's there, and the k is going to always stay the same. So, I mean the numbers. It's either going to be the opposite or it's going to stay the same. So, how are we going to be doing this? Well, you have these steps written down, so we're just going to read them. Step 1, we write it in standard form. So what is standard form? That means when it's in order from highest exponent to lowest exponent. And then their standard form. We're going to identify, step 2 is A, B, and C. Those are our coefficients. Step 3, we find the vertex of the parabola, and that's where we use negative b over 2a, which we learned the other day. And then to find your y coordinate, you plug it back in, plugging in x to find your y. And then step 4 is putting it in vertex form, which means all you're doing is plugging in a, h, and k into the form that I just wrote right here. So let's try it out. Example 1. Find the vertex and rewrite in standard form. So step 1 says write it in standard form. So is it in order from highest to lowest? Yes. Step 2, identify A, B, and C. So A is 1, B is 6, C is 8. Step 3, find the vertex. So we write x equals negative b over 2a. We highlight since it's a formula. We plug in, so we have negative 6 all over 2 times 1, which is negative 6 over 2. So x equals negative 3. That's my axis of symmetry. So I'm going to write AOS, x equals negative 3. Now how do I find the vertex? I already know part of it. Now I got to take this negative 3, plug it back in for the x's. So we're going to go negative 3 squared plus 6 times negative 3 plus 8. Negative 3 squared is 9 minus 18 plus 8. 9 minus 18 is negative 9 plus 8 gives me negative 1. All right. I found my vertex, but I have to do my last step, which is plugging it into standard form. So I start with f of x. I have to put an a first. What was the value of my a? You wrote it already, 1. So 1 goes first, then x minus, because that comes from the formula. What's my h value? Where am I getting h from? My vertex. H is negative 3. So I'm going to put a little negative 3 squared, and then what's my k value? We just found it as negative 1. So just clean this up. I'm going to make this a big plus sign, and there we have it. We have our axis of symmetry is x equals negative 3. My vertex is negative 3, negative 1, and in vertex form is 1 parentheses x plus 3 squared minus 1. That is how you do that. Moving on to example 2. So same thing, we're finding the vertex and then putting it in vertex form. So step 1, make sure it's in standard form, highest to lowest. Step 2, identify A, B, and C. A is 1, B is 14, C is negative 15. find the vertex. Write your formula, negative b over 2a. Plug it in, negative 14 all over 2 times 1, which gives me negative 7. Now I take negative 7 and I plug it back into my equation. Negative 7 squared. Oh, I forgot to write that x there. Plus 14 times negative 7 minus 15. We know that's 49. This is going to be negative 91 minus 15. These two we're going to subtract. It's going to give me negative 49 minus 15, which equals negative 64. So my AOS is x equals negative 7. My vertex is negative 7, negative 64. So now I need to fill in my vertex form. So I write f of x equals, you put your a first, which is 1, parentheses, x minus. Now it's negative again. So we know from example 1, this is going to be a plus sign because 2 negatives make a plus. And then we put negative 64. So all 3 of these are my answer. Vertex, axis of symmetry, vertex form. Okay? Let's do B. A equals 7. B equals 14. C equals 30. X equals negative b over 2a. Yes, I know it's getting annoying that we're writing the formula, but make sure you do that because you know I'm going to check. Negative 14 all over 2 times 7, which is negative 14 over 14. Yay, this is small. X equals negative 1. Now I'm going to plug in negative 1. Order of operations, you have to know what you're going to do first with the negative 1. Are you going to square it or multiply it first? Exponents comes before multiplication. Negative 1 squared is 1. 1 times 7 is 7. 14 times negative 1 is negative 14 plus 30. Now we go left to right. 7 minus 14 is negative 7 plus 30. That's going to be a positive 23. So what did I just find there? My vertex, which is negative 1 comma 23. My axis of symmetry was x equals negative 1. And now for the new part, vertex form. So instead of putting a 1 here, your A is now 7. X minus, this is negative 1. You have to put that negative sign there because now it's going to make it a plus. And then 23. If I went too fast, go ahead and pause the video and watch it again, because now you should be able to do the rest on your own. So pause the video and go ahead and do C. When you have finished with it, hit play and check to see if you got it right. Now, what was different about this one was that my H value for my vertex was positive. So actually inside of it, there's going to still have that negative. Notice on these, you made it into a plus because you had 2 negatives together. So if you got that one right, kudos to you. Go ahead and keep on moving on. I will walk through D with you, and then E and F you're going to do on your own. Step number 1, make sure it's in standard form, so the biggest X has to come first. Step number 2, label your A, B, and C. Step 3, find the vertex. You have to know the formula. When you have two negatives, when you multiply, it makes a positive. So it's positive 8 over 4, which is 2. Take that 2, plug it in for your x's. So I have 2 parentheses 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 39. So 2 squared is 4 times 2 is 8 minus 16 plus 39. That's negative 8 plus 39, which gives me 31. So my AOS, my axis of symmetry, is 2. My vertex is 231. Standard form. A is 2, it goes in front. Then since this is positive, it's going to be opposite, so it's going to be minus inside there. There we go. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and do E and F. When you're done, you may check. Okay, found my vertex, 6 comma negative 25. Axis of symmetry is